how much external debt does Ghana owe? Who are our creditors? What type of loans have we taken from them? Isaac Kufieje is with our research desk and joins me in studio with some answers. Now, what is the data saying?
Well, this is what we have on the touch screen right now. Our total debt stock as a country is around almost $44 billion. And of this $44 billion, we have a lot, majority of it that we owe to external creditors, about 66.5% of the debt that we're talking about. So that's the chart. If you split our debt into two and you categorize into domestic and external, we owe our external creditors almost $30 billion, and domestic creditors almost $15 billion. We've been able to restructure a significant portion of our domestic debt stock. Now, there's a condition that we have to meet in the IMF negotiation that if your debt levels are unsustainable, you have to go ahead to do a debt restructuring before you get the chance to start the program. That is why we are done with the first phase, which is domestic debt. The next to tackle is the external debt. Now, with the external debt, there's a huge hurdle that we have to really cross as far as the external debt restructuring is concerned. So this is the picture. As of September 2022, the nature of our external debt, those that we are owing our creditors. So if you look at China alone, we owe China alone about $1.7 billion, Euro bonds about $13.1 billion, and then other creditors, the Paris Club. So even if you combine Germany, France, US, all the other Paris Club countries, and you sum their debt, it's $1.9 billion, and China alone is around $1.7 billion. This is the reason why, if we really want to restructure our international or external debt, the first place we have to look at is China. Because the Paris Club, they have given us the green light that, they are ready and then they want to restructure the debt. But one person that we have to look at right now is China.
Why not our Eurobonds and multilateral?
Well, Eurobonds, we can still go ahead to restructure. We have, the BlackRocks and other creditors who have huge capital. And so if you tell them I'm in a difficult situation, I want to restructure, you owe them just 13, they have, their portfolio is so huge that your 13 billion is just like a drop in the ocean, so they can afford to, restructure. But China, many say that when they borrow to you, they hide certain conditions as far as the loan is concerned. And so restructuring China's loan is very, very difficult. The perfect example or the perfect case we have is Congo Republic, where they wanted to restructure a total debt of $1.3 billion. Now, with China, they wanted debt cancellation. China said, hell no, I'm not going to give you debt cancellation. What I can do for you is to increase the maturity period and then also increase the interest rate that you are supposed to pay. So at the end of the day, instead of Congo Republic having a debt of $1.3 billion, they ended up having a debt of $1.6 billion, close to almost 24% increase as a result of the debt restructuring arrangement that they had with China. If you look at Zambia, for instance, Zambia, we know, had their staff level agreement in 2020, but because of the hurdle that they had to cross, the China and all that, it took them a long time. It was just in August that China decided to play ball. Now, Zambia wanted 100% cancellation. They wanted a write down on their debt. China said, no, the best we can do for you is to increase the maturity period and give us access to be part of your debt management. Now, we know that with Ghana, for instance, we do not know the nature of the debt. We just know the amount is $1.7 billion. But as to whether some of them or majority is interest-free, because we know that China is only willing to play ball if the debt is interest-free. So if it is not interest-free, they probably will have different conditions for you. They will tell you it's either we increase the maturity period or you increase the interest rate so that they can actually, it can actually offset the kind of change that the restructuring will cause as far as. So we have about 4 steps that we have to go through with our external debt restructuring. The first is to announce the default. We've announced it. We've told them that we can't, we can't do debt servicing in 2023. Although we've budgeted almost 52 billion Ghana cedis, that we are supposed to service debt, we are telling them that it's impossible.
And it's because of the IMF conditionality
exactly
to meet.
Exactly. The next step is to do the negotiation. That is why we have our high-powered, delegation going to China to start negotiations, still pending. Although the Paris Club, they've given us some hope that they will participate, but with China, we do not know the nature of how the talks is going to, turn out. Okay. We have to now offer them, some offer. Then they will look at it and ask themselves, is it a good offer to follow? We heard, the Deputy Finance Minister, John Kuma, saying foreign creditors might enjoy, have a 30% haircut. They won't accept China won't accept it.
Okay.
China is likely not to accept, a haircut. So we ask ourselves, the debts we are owing to China, do we have majority of them being interest-free, or is at a commercial level that they may not accept a haircut or a restructuring? So
interesting.
Wait to see.
Interesting starts there now. Bernard Anaba is a policy analyst with ISODEC. He joins us on Zoom, via Zoom, for some interaction on this. Now, Bernard, I'm grateful that you could join us. How would you describe Africa's economic relationship with China? All right, so we're on with Bernard, who is with ISODEC. He's a policy analyst. We want to understand what the relationship is like with China. And again, what to expect was the delegation moving from Ghana to China is to meet the authorities. They want to know what the country should expect when China comes to the table. And again, what we know so far about our some of our creditors as well, what the US is doing, what UK is doing. The German people promised that they will help Ghana to get a fair deal with the Paris Club. We want to understand what our creditors, some other creditors aside China, are also doing. We've heard that some people have already formed some credit committee to try and then get Ghana to the table because they are prepared for what's coming. And so we want to understand what the issues are. I think we are told that some of our creditors are aware of our situation, and it is in their interest to help Ghana out of this. And I'm told that when countries are in such difficulties, these creditors come around to help them out of it.
Absolutely.
And so we expect that these countries will come to the table to play ball. Yeah. We understand Bernard is on Zoom now. Bernard, we wanted to understand what sort of relationship China has with Ghana in terms of crediting and when we owe them as well. Bernard, if you are with me, I want to understand from you, when it comes to China, the sort of relationship that we do have with China as a creditor and a borrower.
Yeah, thank you, and good evening to your viewers. Sorry the line got bad. Yes, I think we have had a very good relationship in terms of development relationship with China over some time now. And particularly if you look at infrastructure development across Africa, China has been very forthcoming. If you look at most other African countries, especially Ethiopia, China has been very instrumental in their infrastructure development. And even in Ghana, along the line, we had the CDB loan, which was supposed to be for some infrastructure, which didn't go through very well. Currently, we have the Sino-Hydro facility. We have other facilities in terms of development oriented. So China has been very, instrumental in the development life of most African countries, particularly in Ghana as well.
But how would you describe Africa's economic relationship with China?
Yes, so that's what I'm saying, that it has been good in terms of infrastructure, in terms of giving us a different kind of funding from what we know from our European or Western partners. China has heavily given us in terms of infrastructure-related funding. And that's why I said, if we take an example of the Sino-Hydro loan, it's more of an infrastructure-related funding and different kind of funding from what we originally know from the Western kind of credit and other things.
At what cost will this debt cancellation come to Ghana if China should agree?
Yes, definitely it will be at a cost, and depending on how much debt that you will owe to China, in particular, ours is 1.7 as we hear. I think if you compare 1.7 to the other over 20-something billion, that is not so much. We expect China to be, to be magnanimous, to be able to come around the table to, reduce or cancel a significant portion of that debt, and also to help encourage the other creditors to also give us that relief. So I don't think it's going to be so much of a cost to China if you look at the level of debt in comparison to other creditors.
Is China a better lender than the West?
Well, it's a difficult thing to say because sometimes the lending, in terms of the kind of instruments or the kind of conditions that you get, may vary from country to country and from facility to facility. And as I said, most of the China facilities are usually infrastructure based, and sometimes it's difficult to compare. But I think this is also, in terms of this period of debt restructuring, will also prove whether they are a better lender or creditor to us compared to our traditional creditors. So it's also part of the deal that once you are in a relationship, a kind of market relationship in terms of credit, then you also expect that when you are in trouble or you are in difficulties, you are able to work together to find a proper way forward. And if they are not willing to do that, then definitely that will also mean that going into the future, we should be careful how we deal with China.
What sort of implication will it be for defaulting in this particular terms?
Yes, in terms of defaulting, what it means is that it's going to prolong our access to the international market. And, the whole idea of going to the IMF for a loan is to be able to service your debt and also to say that you are more or less credit worthy. And so that the international market or credit market are able to open their doors to you, so we're able to go back to borrowing as usual, as we had done in the past, so that we'll have the hope that our economy will develop, we'll get the funding to develop the economy, the opportunities that we have to, fund, we are able to fund them. So if we are not able to, pay and not able to get the money to pay our lender, then definitely it's going to prolong our access to the international credit market.
Okay. Now, critics have long accused Beijing of practicing debt trap diplomacy, suggesting it deliberately lends to countries that it knows cannot repay the money, thereby increasing its political leverage. What do you think of this?
Can you repeat that again? Sorry.
I'm saying that, people have accused China of what they term as, debt trap diplomacy, suggesting it deliberately lends to countries it knows cannot repay the money, thereby increasing its political leverage, over these countries. What do you, as a policy analyst, think of this particular suggestion?
Well, yes, you may say that, but I don't think it's only China. It is also with all our other creditors, even the Western creditors. If you look at in terms of the rate of borrowing, in terms of the terms of borrowing, it's often not concessionary. It's often to the extent that it says that we are very risky. We pay risk premium, which presumes that definitely we are going to fall into, a ditch. So that presumption is more of, something that seems to, come true. And it's not only China, but it's all our creditors. So it is a structural problem, usually with poor countries or African countries in general. And that is some of the reasons that we are saying that, look, we need to cancel most of the debt, because they have tended to make huge profits off us, saying that we are not creditworthy, we are going to default, we are, so risky. And that has cast. Their own prophecy has come true. So why not be willing to take some of the cost of that? But generally, it's just that as poor countries, we haven't had a fair deal around the world. So it's been difficult to actually develop in peace, because the cost of our borrowing has often been high, the terms and other things has often been high. So it always keeps us into that red line. And that is something that we need to, fight against.
All right. I'm grateful to you for joining us. Bernard Anaba is a policy analyst with ISODEC.